So the next session that we have today is going to be with Morgio Mosca. So let me switch to my presentation mode here. Morgio, do you want to introduce yourself while I'm actually putting myself in presenter mode?
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are across the world. My name is Maurizio. I've been working with SAP BusinessObjects even before it was SAP BusinessObjects, when it was just BusinessObjects. Must be about 20 years now. So I have quite a lot of experience of the different aspects of the BusinessObject software, for the administration to the development, universe, reports, even the data services and ETL bits. And my experience has been working with lots of different clients, different environments. Each client is unique because they have their own specific problems. And also, in all my years of working, I had the chance to work on many migration projects across versions, across environments. So it's been quite an interesting couple of decades so far. And now I've been working with Wiiisdom, helping them, helping our customers with our tools. So it gets better. It gets always better.
It's great to have you on, Maurizio. So today we're going to talk on how Wiiisdom 360 Suite is going to help you go to PC, the private cloud edition. And we'll be talking about the framework that we have. So in terms of migration, let's face it, in reality, a migration today is something nobody likes doing a migration. It's people start with a plan, it's going to take 3 months. And in general, it takes a much longer time. And the other issue is it always takes a lot more resources than expected. And you have to do that on the top of your daily work. And you know what? It's just these are just business migrations. Some of the key challenges, like in any migration, is understanding what's being used, what's not being used. So here, of course, in Bobj, there are always challenges of understanding what's not being used, because this is not something that's standard out of the box. And that's one of the popular use cases that we have with 360 to support a migration. And in terms of non-usage, what we usually recommend is understand the content that was not used in the past 13 months. Why 13 months? Because sometimes there's some content that is used yearly and there can be a slip here and there. So that's why we do that. And ultimately, on some challenges, as what we discussed in the previous session, is you need to trust your migration. You need to make sure that you've got a high user adoption. So it's very important to test your migration. In terms of impacts of a poorly done migration, is definitely they'll take a lot longer. That's something that we see all the time. The cost definitely will will be more expensive because they're longer, they cost more, they were not properly planned, and very often, let's face it, deployments don't necessarily have enough data. And ultimately, you want to make sure that your business users are happy. So over the years, we've actually put together a methodology. And this methodology here that you see on the screen it's a 10-step methodology that we put together. So that's actually the methodology that we're going to cover today, that we've leveraged on, frankly speaking, on thousands of migrations over the past 15 years. So we've refined that over the years, and something that's been very, very, very effective. Let me share my screen again. Okay, here's my screen again. So anyway, that's going to be the framework that we're going to be talking about today. Additionally, Maurizio actually has prepared a cookbook that's available on YouTube. So you can actually feel free to scan the QR code that you see on the screen here. And you will see all the different steps about the PC migration. You want to say a word about that, Maurizio?
Yes, well, yeah, basically we wanted to make our migration framework easily accessible to whoever had to go through this process. So I created a series of videos and each video covering one of the 10 steps to provide guidelines, best practice, so that will make easier for people to manage this process, which as we know can be rich with problems and issues and unforeseen events. Generally speaking, these videos can be applicable to all types of migrations, different versions, not necessarily to PCE, but there are some PCE specific points that are covered by the video as well. So I recommend you all to have a look at them. And I explain on each step, each of the 10 steps from the planning phase to the go live, post migration, and they show how the 360 and the tools can help to manage this process in an effective way, saving time, saving cost, reducing risk, making the whole thing a bit smoother. Because as Bruno said, he likes doing migrations. So the more help we can get, the better.
Thank you very much, Maurizio. So let's talk about the step one. So the step one, it's all about preparation. So you need to document as much as possible. You need to understand and to have to put together a real plan. So Maurizio, in terms of preparation, what is specific about PCE?
Well, yes, there are a few things that are specific to PCE. So the main thing is if you migrate in PCE, this is actually you need to move stuff. It's not just an in-place upgrade, and you move stuff to a cloud environment which is managed by SAP, and that depending on the characteristic of your current environment, might give you might mean that this could be either a full cloud implementation or a hybrid solution. Maybe your source data is also on the cloud as well. And at that point, the main thing is to make sure that connectivity isn't affected, because obviously you're interacting with clouds in different places, maybe different regions of the world. So that's one of the key aspects. Then you need to consider some specific technical characteristics, like as been mentioned, PCE operates in a Linux system. So your client tools need to go somewhere else. You can't, band them together with the PCE environment. And one very important thing, when you migrate to PCE, your audit database get reset. It starts from zero. So you really need to make sure that you don't lose your historical audit data, and you want to be able to access it even after you've done the migration. So this is like a very important aspects.
And there 360 will help, because you're actually able to keep that historical information.
Yeah, and finally, one last, but not least important, disaster recovery strategy. That could be a bonus in a way, because you don't have to worry about the hardware or the software anymore, because that's taken care by SAP, which is great. But still, you need to consider, how about my content? That you need to manage yourself. You are responsible for it. So you need to have a solid disaster recovery strategy, backup and restore strategy to deal with that.
So in terms of information with 360, we're able to extract all the metadata, whether it's from Bobj or data services, and we can report on it. So that's very handy for migration, because we're able to understand what's used, what's not used, and then compare the changes over time before and after migration. So step number two, it's all about evaluating. So here, again, as you've done the preparation, here you're able to catalog, you're able to document everything you have. That can be documents, universes, etc. You can discuss about usage, scheduling, benchmarking. So one thing to keep in mind is when you go to PCE, is remember that is a t-shirt size. So you need to make sure that you clean whatever you're not using. Of course, you need to find what is not being used.
Yeah, and that's one of the examples that we can, and that the data we can provide with one of our out-of-the-box reports, where you can see usage in terms of count of documents, count of instances, and their size. And you can see it broken down by the main categories. So anything in the root folder, public folders, user folders, inboxes. That gives you like a starting point where for your analysis, because you can start really flagging things that might be as not as expected. And in here, you can also see usage of the individual documents. So you could see when documents have been used, how long it's been since the last time they were used. You can even see documents that have been used. That they're there, they're sitting in the system, but they have been used by anyone. And so that already, it's a good way to understand what may not need to be migrated. And you can even drill down to more details to see individual actions performed on each document, whether there are instances that have been saved, whether the document is modified. And again, with this more detailed view, you can still have a look and see stuff that, has never been used. Or maybe, if we take the 13 months rule, you consider anything over 13 months, we don't need to worry about. Another way to keep track of what you have and what you may need or not to move is to look at reports that might be duplication of other existing reports, which is something that is basically impossible to do manually or just visually. But with all tools, you can predict with a fairly good percentage documents that even if they have different names, in the end they're pretty much the same thing, because maybe they use the same objects, same variables. And again, it's not uncommon for example, for people to make copies of the reports, put them into their favorites, and then leave them there. Don't know why they do that, but they do it. And then, again, you really want to move all this duplicated stuff and use space for nothing.
And we even see customers sometimes that got hundreds of like one document has been duplicated over 100 times. So these are things that we actually see on a common basis. And the fact there that you're able to locate these, you're able to reduce the migration effort because you don't need to do as much testing. You're reducing the amount of problems. And in terms of content that has not been used in the past 13 months in general, we see about 61% of the content on deployments actually can be archived. In terms of licenses, that's also something that we always like to talk with customers, and we always do bets, in fact, on that, is to understand, hey, in terms of licenses, how many licenses you're not using. So that's very valuable when you go to PC, because you can convert these licenses towards SAC. So that's very interesting. So we can understand what you're using in terms of licenses, not using. And of course, if you've got like name sessions, concurrent sessions, we can monitor how many sessions you in fact really need for that.
And just on that, Bruno, just yesterday I had a training session with a customer, and we were looking at those reports, and they had bought both named and concurrent licenses. But then looking at the report that you showed before, they actually found out that concurrent licenses weren't being used at all. It was just named licenses. So again, that's a good way to understand your environment and maybe review your licensing strategy.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of scheduling, what can you tell me here? So why is it important?
Well, it is very important. First of all, because scheduling can be very intensive. So, that affects on the performance of the system or your needs. And then, you want to make sure that optimize your scheduling, landscape as much as possible. You might be surprised, and it definitely happened to me and many clients, I've been working for, where you have so many schedules, maybe running multiple times a day, that are totally unnecessary, because the data maybe is refreshed overnight. So why do you need to refresh it then during the day every hour? Or maybe you have schedules that run, but then they fail all the time. So obviously no results from that, apart from consuming resources. So again, you can use the data from our tools to analyze your scheduling landscape. You can see, what runs, when it runs, what are the main reports, and you can see the failure rate. And then you can also take a benchmark to show the duration of the schedules, which then you can, compare after the migration to see if there is any change. Again, users tend to say, "Oh, it used to be better before." Maybe not. Maybe it's actually better now, but now you can prove it because you got the documentation for it.
Thank you. So now step number 3, it's all about backup, archiving, cleanup. So as we covered before, there was a lot of content that you can clean up. So on average, it's about 61 of the content that can be cleaned up. So there with 360, we're able to support you. And as we always say, for any migration, you always need to do a backup in advance. Okay, so there, it's don't do any migration, of course, without that, because after that, obviously, you're going to do cleanup, and there are a lot of things. Also, in that process, we'll be talking about the UNV to UNX conversion.
Yes, I mean, backup, it's definitely strongly recommended to perform a backup before you do anything else. And the good thing is, again, using our tools, you can run backup in a very flexible and controlled way. So you can have a full backup to start with, you can specify which category objects you want to back up, or even individual objects. And then you can run a delta backup where you only back up what's been changed since the previous one. Obviously, this is much more efficient than a traditional backup and restore strategy where you usually take a snapshot of everything. But then the problem is, if I only need to restore something, but I don't want to restore everything, I don't have that choice. Whether when you use 360 tools, you can decide to maybe restore one report, one folder, one universe without having to touch anything else. And obviously that means it's faster, there is no downtime, you don't lose any changes that have been happening in the meantime because you don't overwrite everything. So,
and a key there as well, it is incremental, so you can roll back. So if there was something that was corrupted, of course you can roll back to past versions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is also an alternative to or a complementary strategy in your cleanup process when you decide that you want to archive some documents. Archiving in this case, it can be either hiding documents from the users or moving them into a specific archive location on your system. And that you might want to do that for documents that you think they are not needed, you think you might need to remove, but you're not sure. So you have these intermediate steps when you remove them from the user community. Then maybe wait a bit, a few months, a few weeks, depending on your strategy. And if nobody's complained, that means you can remove them altogether. Again, you save space, you have fewer things to worry about, to test, to maintain. So that's one of the possibility and the options you have with our solutions. You can even have this is we've been talking about documents and universes, but you can do similar things also on document instances. So you can create automated processes to archive your document instances and move them to a dedicated file location. So you take them out of the BusinessObjects platform. So again, save space on the file repository server, which, as we've seen, might cost money if you need to increase the size in BCE. But at the same time, you keep those instances because maybe you need them for auditing purposes, for data regulation purposes. So you don't really you cannot remove them, even though they are not needed for the day-to-day use. And again, that's a good solution. Yes, and in this slide, Bruno shows the result of this exercise as being conducted by one of our customers. It's a real case scenario. And after the analysis and the cleanup exercises, you can see that they reduced the space that they needed by 80%. I mean, imagine what that means. And then you can manage this process and you can document this process because you can even keep an eye on the things that you cleaned up. Another way and another thing that we suggest to do as part of the cleanup exercise is to convert your UMV universes to UNX. Sorry, Bruno. Yes, that's the one. You don't need to, but it will be a good moment to do it as part of the migration process. Now, there are tools. I mean, you can convert the universe relatively straightforward in BusinessObjects with the information design tool. That's the easy bit. That's painless usually. But then the problem remains that all the reports that were using the UMV universe, now they need to use the UNX universe. So you need to repoint them. And this is in business objects, natively, this is a manual process and it's painful.
Mm.
It's, it's time consuming, it's boring. If you have thousands of documents, think about opening each of them, each data provider, repointing, changing the data source. It goes on forever.
Yeah, it's
But
it's a big deal. Yeah.
it is a big deal. I mean, this is one of the reasons why people don't convert and they leave
Yes.
it until the end because they say we can't, we don't have the time then to
And
repoint them.
and to be very clear here, we do recommend that you do the cleanup and the reporting before going to
Yeah,
PC because you're going to save time after that. You're going to save money after that. I mean, why move something that you don't need, that you're not using? You're going to drag it. And then after that, it's going to take storage. It's going to be a lot more issues, more regressions, more problems. So, talking about step number 4 here. So, step number 4, it's about promotion. So, that's of course something that we support with 360. And so today, what is specific, by the way, with PC? So I see here there's a comment about the audit database. So can
yes,
you
well,
actually promote that?
no, you can't. When you move to PC, when you migrate, the audit database starts again from zero. So again, you don't want to lose your auditing data, so you need to make sure that that you keep that data and you want to be able to access it even after
Right.
you migrate it. So again, with our tools, you can consolidate the before and after audit data all in the same place, and then you can access it even if it's in different places, let's say.
And that's because it's a new install, right, for PC.
Yes, it's a new install, and the AuditDB it's different, so it doesn't support the data from the previous AuditDB.
So there with 360, you're able to connect, you're able to keep the old audit information and then
Yeah,
connect it as well to the new environment and then
yes.
start to collect from there. And then you can actually mix the metadata together. In terms of promotion, what do we offer here?
Well, promotion again, we offer a very very important aspect of the promotions is that you can, in the same way as the backup, you can do incremental or delta promotion. So if you consider that a migration project will last weeks or
Mm.
months, and you might start promoting stuff to your PC environment, and then you have other stuff you need to promote because in the meantime, people keep on working on your source system. It's still your live production system. You can't stop people from working in them.
Got it.
So you don't really want to, promote everything every week to make sure that you don't miss anything. So there again, with our tools, you can have an initial full promotion, and then you can have your delta promotions where only what's been created new or changed since the last one gets migrated. Again, very quick, minimal downtime or no downtime at all, and very secure. Also because you can monitor what's been promoted.
Right, right.
You can run reports that would, with the data that we collect through 360 to show which objects have been promoted, which ones still need to be promoted, when they've been promoted, whether you need to promote them again because they changed. So you can keep an audit of that. You can document it and keep it as a test and demonstration of what's been done and what needs to be done
Yeah,
still.
that's always a concern is, have I moved everything? Has it been promoted? So
Yes.
that's always a big question. The next step that we have is step number 5. Again, it's about backup and cleanup. So why do we have a step number 5 here about backup and cleanup? The reality is, in some cases, some deployments are in a rush, and they say, you know what, I don't have time to do a cleanup before. Frankly, it's not a good practice. We don't recommend that, but that's why we say, okay, in that case, if you couldn't do it before, then do it once you're on PC. So, but just know that there will be additional costs on that once you've moved to the cloud there. So that's why we recommend doing that before. Step number 6, it's all about optimization. So here, in terms of optimization, it's you've done your migration. You've got to understand that you want to make sure that your reports are optimized, that they're running quickly. Whatever you can do to make them leaner, you might as well do them. So, Maurizio.
Yes, I mean, you can look at different things in terms of optimization. Universes is one example. you can check which universes are actually being used, which ones are not, and within those universes, which objects are being used, which ones are not. And again, that could be a good starting point towards either removing redundant universes or removing
Got it.
objects because needed. Again, less maintenance, less things to worry about, when it comes down to testing, for example. In the same way, you can do similar things for reports, where you can see for each report whether any objects that have been returned by the query are actually being used, or any variables or any formulas have been used. And again, that could even lead to performance improvements, because if you have a report that brings back 50 objects, but then you only use 10, you don't really want to query those 50
Yeah.
objects. You can delete the other 40, and maybe the query, the refresh time will improve by 50%, 80%, who knows. So that's a good a quick
Yeah,
win.
definitely. And also here you can trace or you can track all the variables that are never used that will cause
Yeah,
problems, and just don't
yeah,
move them. That's always or just locate them and isolate them. Step number 7, it's about quality. So that's very important here because again, is if you do a poor migration or if there are some issues in the migration, I mean, there's always something that's going to happen. You will lose trust from your users. People, there will be a low adoption. So here, the key here is you need to test. So do testing on your data, on your metadata, on the performances, on the security. And just by the way, on PC, one thing that's specific here is yes, SAP will be managing all the upgrades, which is really cool. But at the end, you will be responsible to do all the testing. So, tell us about what we do on reports.
Well, we had this wonderful tool that removes the need to do manual testing, which is very time consuming, is tedious. And then again, there is only so much that you can pick up as a human being, especially when you start going, report after report after report. So, with our tool, you can automate the whole process. And you can take a document, you can take snapshot of the same document at different points in time, or maybe you can take a snapshot of the same document across 2 different environments. And with that, you can compare the results to check if there are any changes in the data, in the layout, in the formatting, in the way the graphs are shown. You have, as you can see from this image, very detailed, information about that. And you can even check differences in refresh time. So there again, people complain it took before it took less than now. Well, there again, with this, you can document it that before it took, maybe 10 seconds, and after it takes 8 or maybe 20, in which case you need to, do something about that. And then, this is the visual bit, but you can also document it again. Each test that you run, it can be fully documented again for your auditing documentation. You can have a collect or an audit trail of what's passed, what's not passed.
Yeah, because at the end is people want to know, have you really tested that? And
yes,
you can prove it. So, there are 2 values there is one, find all the regressions. And the second thing is, you can prove that was tested. So it's always important.
Yeah. And then, you also want to test and to make sure that, when you change environment and that, any security settings remain as they are. And again, you can run a quick check using one of our reports to show the security matrix, for 2 different snapshots or 2 different environments. So the before and after the migration, and if there are any changes, they'll be highlighted, and then you can quickly remediate that.
And here, with this type of access to the metadata that we have, we're actually able to do regression testing on basically on all the metadata that we're collecting, and we can compare multiple snapshots together. So here we've taken the security example. The next step, it's about, analyze impact. So after you found regressions, what you do. So Maurizio.
Well, this is a great way to show how a real case scenario actually works, because this is a real case scenario again. You want to make sure that after you migrate stuff, there are no regression, and that you trap those. And you can see in here that, starting from an environment with 12,000 documents, our client, using our methodology, ran an initial analysis to identify the documents that are most used, so the ones that are kind of most important. And from those documents, about 240, they ran a regression testing, and that regression testing step flagged 28 documents that had differences between the before and after. So there was a further analysis done on these 28 documents to find out what went wrong. And the result was that because of the change of version, some formula didn't work anymore. The classical calculation engine error that, sometimes you see. And based on the information, they check every single report for the same type of error. So out of the 12,000, they say, okay, give me all the reports that had the same formula. And they found that there were about 600 of those, which, again, they could be updated in bulk to fix the formula. And there you go. That's the whole thing done. It took some time in terms of actually from start to end, but in terms of manual intervention and the time spent to set up the tasks, look at the analysis, it was just 4 hours of person time. So obviously that's enormous saving. And also you can do that off hours, so again, no impact on the day-to-day activity.
Yes, of course you needed to do the planning to use this, that whole process, that whole methodology before, but that's actually quite impressive. And it was interesting. Last week I was talking to a bank that used to do, each time they would test all their critical financial reports, it would take them about a month because they were doing things manually. At least they were testing in their case. And when they start to use 360, initially, I think it took them 3 days at first, and now it's just a couple of clicks and it runs and it does all the testing. So that's extremely fast, and there's a very high value to that. The step number 9, it's all about the go live. So, for the go live, there's a big part about promotion here.
Yes, well, again, you can manage your promotion in a very flexible and efficient way by automating this task. Again, you can take full advantage of the Delta promotion capabilities, which means that you can basically maintain the system in sync, the two systems in sync, without any manual intervention at all, apart from setting up the tasks and scheduling to run regularly. Again, so you can run this every day, every night in Delta mode. Whatever is changed or whatever needs to be promoted gets promoted automatically. Nobody notices, everybody's happy, nothing to complain about.
Yeah. And the cool thing as well with 360, something that we're not showing here, is we're also able, with reports from the metadata, to see what has changed, what has been modified, what has been deleted. So you're able to track that. So yeah, definitely there, of course, your environment is living during your migration. And once you've done a full promotion initially, you need to work on the Delta part. The step number 10, it's all about complying. So what's critical here is, okay, you're on the cloud or you're on PC here, so you need to make sure that you document what you have. So that can be very important for if you're SOX, if you're BCBS 239, if you are a federal organization through FISMA Data Act. So it's very important. You're also able to think about how to monitor your PII information. So these are things that we do through tagging. So we're able to track all the PII and how it is used. Additionally, when you are at that level, you need to think, how am I going to archive? So of course, your environment is still growing. So you need to think about a strategy about how you're going to archive. So that's really critical. Additionally, you need to continue to do some testing. So put in place a CI/CD pipeline leveraging 360. So that's really important. Maurizio, I know when we're talking about that, you were talking, hey, Bruno, that's really cool. But like today, if you go on the cloud on PC, there is, yes, you've got a side, B side, but what are the limitations here of that type of backup or plan B?
Well, I think the main limitation is, the lack of flexibility. Usually, let's say the traditional kind of disaster recovery strategy is, oh, let's back up the virtual machine, let's back up the databases, let's back up the file repository server, and then if something happens, we restore them. Well, there is a problem with that. First of all, things might be distributed, so you might need to back up multiple virtual machines, number one. Second, it's like all or nothing kind of solution. So let's say, one of the users deletes a folder in the public folders that it contains the most important reports that ever been used, or maybe a user is is removed. How do you restore it? Maybe it's also removed from the recycle bin. Users that don't even go into the recycle bin. So once it's deleted, it's gone forever. And its stuff, its content is gone also. Now, with the traditional backup and disaster recovery system, that means, okay, everybody stops. We need to restore the system. We roll back to yesterday, 2 days ago, whenever the last backup was taken. That might take some time, downtime already. That also means that you restore everything to, whatever the previous backup point was, which means also that anything that's changed since gets lost. You don't, you lose it. And people might have, considerable, important, complicated, reports that have been created. They need to do it all over again. So, it's not ideal. Ideally, what you want is you want to be able to say, okay, well, some user by mistake has removed this report. It's very important. Hang on a second. I'll get it from my backup. There you go. 3 seconds, it's back in, because we can restore individual objects. Or the user has been deleted. Well, it's not even the recycle bin in BusinessObjects, but we can still get it because 360 gives you that possibility.
And that's a good point. And one of the limitations, by the way, of VM backup, so you got A side, B side, is it's not incremental. So it's a full image of what you have. So whatever you have in A is copied in B. And the value here with 360, with the 360 suite solutions, is it's incremental. So if you have something that's corrupted in A, it will be corrupted in B. And here you can actually roll back to the previous version. So there is an issue, you can roll back to the previous version of the updates of the object. So that's actually is invaluable. And in fact, if you're regulated, it's actually a need, because think, hey, I've got a DR site. Well, it copied basically my A site, and that is going to be an issue because your B site will be corrupted as well. So we're getting close to the end here. So overall, in terms of persona benefits, leveraging 360 methodology here, Wiiisdom 360 suite methodology here is, the business users, they love it. Why? Because they know that their content has been tested. So, and they know that the performances will be optimal. IT, they love us because it's a lot cheaper. No, seriously, it's we put here 70%, but it's actually higher than that. We see 80% or more. So it's a lot faster. They get a full documentation. They know what's going on. The compliance teams, they love us as well. Everybody does. But the reality there is they can actually track all the changes. They can see that everything was tested. So that's one of the key values. In terms of key takeaways is, I could spend 10 minutes just talking about that. But the reality is we've done that on thousands of migrations. So you can trust it, and you can recycle that methodology on a daily basis. Again, here we put together that cookbook on YouTube. Just feel free to scan the QR code here, and you'll see all the 10 steps detailed one by one with the awesome Maurizio, who's here with us today and who's presenting every step on how to go to PCE and how to execute all these different steps. In terms of Wiiisdom, of course, we've got the 360 suite offering traditional for business object. We've got now the 360 eyes for data services, and we'll be doing a webinar next month. So feel free to contact us for that. And it's rock solid. And then we also have an offering with Wiiisdom Ops for Analytics Op, and where it's all about testing your dashboard outputs. So ensuring that the last mile can be fully trusted, ensuring that the dashboards are going to your CEO, to your critical users, your embedded analytics, that they are fully tested and fully trusted. So we support now, of course, Power BI, and Tableau. And this is the 360 suite offering that we have today. So, from the regression testing to the bursting, analysis of your metadata. We also do version management and universe management, and there'll be actually some additions in the near future. So, guys, Maurizio, I appreciate that you've joined for this session. We'll be going to the next session right away.